Cool. Right, Lydia des Doles. I hope I pronounced it right. I hope you're well today. I appreciate your
I'm
time.
good.
I've seen some of your
No problem.
videos. Hmm?
No problem.
Cheers. Yeah, I've seen some of your videos. I know you've done a lot of interviews. You've interviewed people like McGregor. Can you tell us about your background and how you got started?
I started doing Fight Connect TV about 7 years ago. I started doing jiu-jitsu. I started training jiu-jitsu. I started competing in jiu-jitsu, and through that met some people who were involved in different MMA organizations, BAMA being one of them, which is now Bellator Europe. And they were looking for someone to do social media, to do some kind of like work with fighters, like getting fighters to hotels from airports and helping them set up for interviews and stuff. So through that, I started realizing that there was like a whole world, you know, involved behind outside of just fight night. There was so much going on, and nobody was covering it. So I decided to start doing like little behind the scenes clips and backstage and fight camps and just little stuff on Snapchat and Instagram. And then it just grew and got really, really popular. So here we are, 7 years later.
What would you say are some of the most difficult parts of boxing, like some of the behind the scenes, the politics? What have you seen before?
I mean, there is obviously politics involved in all aspects of sport, all aspects of the entertainment business. It just goes with the territory. I've been quite lucky, you know, I worked independently up until joining Empire. So I kind of was very much working on sort of grassroots, the kind of grassroots end of the sports, and, you know, amateur level. And, you know, the coverage that I was doing was not really threatening. I don't do clickbait articles. I don't do clickbait videos. I don't look for exclusives. It's all about the fighter's journey and, you know, how they, you know, just their life in general. It was just about giving them a platform to tell their story. So I kind of avoided a lot of, you know, politics. And then when I joined Empire, which is where I'm in the UK now, I accepted a job offer with Empire, which started out as Empire Pro Tape, now is Empire Fight Store, One Empire Management, One Empire Media. So once I accepted the position to move over here and to work with Empire, I had a kind of a bigger team, a team of people who've been involved in sport the same amount of time as me, in some cases longer, like Jamie Sheldon. He's been a cut man for nearly 20 years and is now a part of the management company. So I'm quite protected in a lot of stuff because of that team. And they've been in the business for a long time, so they get to guide me, and I don't kind of take too many wrong steps. You do mess up, and you do obviously come into play with politics and stuff, but it doesn't affect me as much as maybe it would do someone else.
Okay, sounds good. Do you think boxing's mainstream enough? I'll give you an example. Like
Yes.
August 2019, me, Billy Joe Saunders, and Kid Galahad were walking around Sheffield Shopping Centre, and
Yes.
well, I'm not trying to show off for the fact, it's just an example. So we're walking around, broad
Yeah.
daylight. Only one person recognized Billy. He was like 10, 12-year-old boy. He comes up, asks for a picture. You know, I took it, he went. But this is broad daylight. We were in that shopping center for maybe 40 minutes. Only one person recognized them. If you look back at Nigel Benn Eubank days, there's no way that would have happened. So is this a problem in boxing where people like Billy Joe Saunders, if you look at what he's achieved, this is before the Canelo fight, I thought these people don't know who he is. So is this a problem holding boxing back?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's a different time. The role of social media plays a huge part in boxing, in combat sports, in where we're at today in terms of visibility for fighters and the sport, and the kind of pool of exposure is just filtered differently. If you think back with Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank, the days when they were in their prime, and when, you know, boxing, if you look, kind of boxing purists would look back at that time as been like the kind of boom of British boxing. It was a different time in terms of boxing was on TV. It was on TV in a much bigger capacity. There was no social media, so you're getting more viewership. You're getting more people sitting in front of the TV on a Saturday night to watch the boxing, to watch different events that are happening. Now there's too much selection. There's loads of sports going on. We have more apps where people are watching their boxing. So it really is more kind of a filtered down sort of process than back in the day when, you had 10 channels on your TV and one of them was BBC or one of them was Sky Sports or whatever it is, BT Sports. And that's where you watch the boxing, and then you go to the pub on a Sunday, and that's where everyone is talking about. And maybe there was a little bit more coverage in terms of newspapers and different things like that. But I don't think boxing is less popular. I don't think the fighters are less popular. I just think that there's more selection for fans now, more ways for fans to look at sports, to look at sports or to follow. We now look. We're in a time where you can follow the American end of the sports. You can look at European sports. It's not just Britain or where your kind of local fights are happening.
Okay, that is a good point. Obviously, there was less choice back then. But take these days, do you think obviously boxing's constantly behind the paywall? If you look at football, I don't follow football as much, but I've started following it now. But you come home, you watch football. Football's on all the time. They're playing each other, Arsenal, Manchester, etc. In boxing, it's behind the paywall, and you're not seeing the fights you want to see. You're not like Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. I've been around boxing a long time. I remember over 10 years ago, I met them in the same week, like 2010. I said to them back then, I was talking up the fight. Look how long it's taken to happen. Obviously in football, it wouldn't take that long. So is this a problem in boxing? It's constantly behind the paywall and you're not seeing the best fight the best. What do you think of that?
I mean, there's an argument there for it, of course, and we just have to look at the heavyweight division in boxing at the moment and see how things are drawn out, how long it takes for fights to be made, the different back and forths that happen there. But that's boxing, it's the sort of dramatics and the behind the scenes and the, sign the contract, all that kind of carry on is part of boxing. It's part of the culture of boxing. Arguably, we're in a time now where if we look back on kind of like the old classics or those, classic fighters, whether you're looking at Muhammad Ali before Muhammad Ali or around that time, the argument was the best fought the best. And that's the way it should be. It should always be like that. I think there should always be 50-50 fights, even for new pros starting out. Boxing does veer away a little bit to other combat sports like MMA, for example, that, from straight off the bat, you're fighting someone who is on your level, on your skill level, has the same experience as you. In boxing, we tend to see professional boxers will be given maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights to sort of learn their craft with maybe a lower level opponent, which is just the way things are done. So I don't know, to answer your question, as a fan of boxing, yeah, of course you want to see the best fights made. You don't want to hear anything about the politics, the money, managements or contracts, agencies, whatever it is. But also I work in the sport, so I understand that, there is so much money involved in these fights that this is why they take time. And everyone wants to get paid, everyone deserves to get paid. So they just take a little bit more time than they should. I mean, the argument there is that Brook Khan should have happened 10 years ago, but we're still excited for it. Everyone's still buzzing for it. Everyone is still, talking about who wins, who brings a better skill set. So I don't think, although yes, we would have liked to seen it 10 years ago, I think it's still a very interesting fight, and I'm just glad that it's been made. I'm glad that it's happening, and fair play to Boxer and Sky Sports Boxing for putting it together.
I'm glad this finally happened, but yeah, obviously just is not what it was, but it's life, I guess. But
Mhm.
let me ask you something. Tell me about, see, you meet a lot of people in boxing.
Yes,
Boxing's a very, I'll give you a quick example. Yeah, I don't mean to have a go at I met Kell Brook recently. I don't know if you saw my video. I got a chance to spar him on camera.
very good.
I'll send you the video. I landed one lucky shot. He got annoyed, dropped me with some body shots. But the
Yeah.
reason the reason I'm bringing it up, compared to other sports, it's very easy to get into boxing. You got family members training people. Oh, this is my cousin. I'm gonna train him. You got all kinds of random cornermen. Anyone can become a trainer, not hot, etc., etc. What do you think of that? Do you think there's too many people in boxing? Do you think there's too many people that they're not good at boxing, but because of their connections, you see them tag? And I'll give you a quick example. Someone like me, I know boxing, and I'm very honest. So if I was talking to a fighter, I'll give you a prediction. I won't bother me. I'll tell you what I think of you. But the problem is, you've got so many people that lie to them, telling them what they want to hear. So, what are your thoughts on all this?
I think, I mean, I'm not a coach, I'm not a professional fighter, so I don't have a certain degree of experience in terms of properly being able to analyze or to dissect that question. But I think that it's like anything, there's spoofers in everything, in not just boxing, not just fight sports, in every industry in the world. You're always going to get a spoofer. That's just the way it is. I don't think, me as a member of the media, in the role that I do, I don't think it's my responsibility or my position to point out or to say that person isn't a real trainer or that person isn't a real whatever. I think it's up to the fighter. I think it's up to gyms. I ultimately think it's the same goes with anything. It was same for my industry, coaching, fighting, whatever it is. Like, you will be found out if you're not genuine. You will be found out if you're not the best. So it's just one of those things. It's just a process. It's not really something that I tend to think about too much. Yes, of course, there are times when you do wonder about coaches, management, agents, whatever it is. You might just get a thing of like, I don't know if they're very genuine or whatever it is, but I don't give it too much thought. I just carry on, do my bit.
Oh, yeah, no, that's all right. Maybe obviously it's a difficult question. Maybe I'll stick to asking people like Adam Smith next time I see him. But
Yeah.
what? Because obviously
You'll
maybe it's
definitely
more
have
their.
you'll definitely have a better answer for you than me.
Oh, no, nothing wrong with that. But obviously maybe it's more their responsibility to think about those sort of things. Oh, okay. What
Yeah,
do you
I
think?
don't I
So,
don't think I don't think it's Adam, like, I don't think it's any coach's responsibility to out other coaches either. I don't think, like, it's just who I am. I just think focus on yourself, focus on what you do, and I don't worry about other people. I'd like to think that genuine coaches or genuine fighters would have that same, maybe with fighters it's a little bit different. If somebody who has been protected or isn't as genuine in terms of the best fighter is further along in their career and they deserve a shot or whatever it is. But the results speak for themselves in everything. So I think that if somebody is not, quote unquote, a good coach or is not deserving of a platform that they have or something, they get found out. So I don't think we should worry about it too much.
okay. I'll just say quickly what I was trying to get at. I just think there should be more of a process. If you want to get into boxing, get into it, but there needs to be
Mhm.
more of a tighter. I'll give you a quick example. I was
Yeah,
involved in a sort of sponsorship. Someone contacted me once, a sponsor. They said, yeah, I knew her quite well. I want you to
yeah,
help me. I want to sponsor one of the female fighters. So I got in
yeah,
touch with someone, and the fighter and their team were up for it. But then their family member who was like managing or whatever, what the fighter was being offered was, you're going to get help with training equipment, provide head guards, gloves, and so on. But
Mhm.
then the family member wanted more from the sponsor, quite a lot more, and the
Yeah.
sponsor was like, "No, it's not I'm not. I won't name the fighter, but it's like
No,
it's not
please
Katie
don't.
Taylor. Like your fighter is not Katie Taylor. So in the end, they just said, forget the whole thing. What I'm trying to say about the manager, they were trying to act as if their fighter was much more valuable than they were. So the
Yeah.
whole thing just fell apart. So I think that was a bad situation. Never mind though.
Yeah, I mean, but that kind of a situation like that, you know, is naturally going to happen, and you will find with somebody who, if a management company doesn't have a good experience or isn't, you know, it doesn't have particular experience in dealing with sponsorship or dealing with, you know, activating sponsorships or whatever it might be, then these things happen. But I mean, it's sometimes it's very hard as a manager because you believe in the fighter, you see their value, you see what they bring to the table, and sometimes brands might not see that translation, or you know where they're going to be in 6 months or a year, and you know, so it is a fine line. You have to be very on the ball with stuff like sponsorship programs and stuff like that. And also, as a fighter, I think you need to have a lot of trust in your management company that they're going to try and get you the best deal, but also not screw you over in terms of something like that. So I think it's just individual to the person. I think it's individual to the brand or whatever it is. But this is where experience plays a massive part as well. So it is sort of important.
No, you're right. It's a good way to look at it. So what do you think about where do you sort of see your role in boxing going long time? What are your long-term goals?
My long-term goals, obviously, as part of Empire, I'm the media director here, so I have a big responsibility in terms of looking after all the media output of all our brands, Empire Fight Store, with Empire Media, with Empire Management, Empire Pro Tape. So, you know, in that obviously is Fight Connect TV as well, the First Exchange podcast, and also the Captured documentary series. So there's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of plans in place, and there's a bigger vision in terms of growing all those brands and, you know, becoming a global leader in all those brands. So that's kind of where my goals will lie. Obviously, I love doing what I do. I love presenting. I love all the kind of in-vision on-screen work that I do, but ultimately that's not going to last forever. I can't see myself going to shows forever, you know, up and down the country, living in hotels for half the week. It takes a toll on you. So I think, you know, as soon as I decide to call all that side of things a day, I'll focus more on, you know, being in the office and building all those brands.
Okay. Who are some of your favorite fighters to interview? I saw some of your Dave Allen interview, and I think you're the one that you revealed the information what he was saying. Hearn offered him, told him not to fight Dubois. I'll get you a better deal. And apparently, I haven't had a chance to ask Eddie yet, but then apparently that never materialized, that offer. So obviously, I don't know what happened. I don't know who's to blame. But who have been some of your favorite fighters to interview?
Dave Allen is obviously a very good person to interview because he's very honest, and probably honest to a fault in that, you know, spoke very honestly about that. And I don't know whether that was, you know, I don't know whether that was a good thing to say, you know, while he's still an active fighter, you know, talking about contracts and money and promises and different stuff like that, especially when we don't have Eddie's side of the, you know, the conversation. So, but Dave is always a really good person to interview. Sonny Edwards is another person who's really good to interview because he's really honest, really doesn't care what he says or how it affects him or his brand or whatever way you want to say it. So Sonny's really good. And then obviously, you know, when I do the podcast and I have a longer time period and I get to sit down with people and I spend an hour and a half and they come to the studio for the day, and, you know, it's really nice because you get to build a certain relationship with them. So I think rather than saying, you know, who my favorite fighter or coach or, you know, industry person is to interview, it will be more sort of, I enjoy doing a certain type of interview, which is the podcast and sitting down and, you know, getting to really sort of uncover the person who is in the chair. But I think anyone who's honest and anyone who you know, is not afraid to speak their mind and who's genuine, they're usually people who I tend to get on with the best.
Okay. What would you say are some interesting stories that you've on your podcast? What are some sort of interesting stories in boxing that you've uncovered that stood out?
I think probably with Dominic Ingle, that was a big one because he opens up a lot in terms of his dad, Brendan Ingle, and the impact that he had on him, and the the journey that they were on together, and how his passing had affected him and affected people at the gym. So I think that was probably a really good conversation. I think Maxie Hughes was a great person as well. He had literally just won his world title, and he was discussing his journey and how many people had told him to quit, and he wanted to quit himself, and then conversations with his wife, and he decided not to, and now he's a world champion, and gets to leave his full-time job, and just his stories of coming up and fighting in working man clubs, and walking out to a ring and people with pints in their hand and cigarettes in their hand, and just a different time in terms of boxing and the what was accepted, I suppose, and just goes to show how long he's actually in the sport. And then there's people like Terry Harper, who I interviewed her while she was still world champion, and just really saw a different side to Terry, and really saw her personality, and she was just very relaxed, and we had a lot of fun. And obviously then she spoke about her own backgrounds, obviously being gay and being a supporter, a public supporter of the LGBTQ community, and coming out to her dad and different stuff like that. So you're always getting a sort of like a personal story, or a personal sort of aspect of the person, of the fighter. So I always appreciate all those conversations.
No, it definitely sounds very interesting. I got another question. I could have asked it earlier, but what does media training mean? And do you think some fighters need to be media trained? And I'll give you a quick example. I hope I hope you don't mind me talking about myself, but take me. Also, I'm not as famous as these people, but I don't think I'd need media training, because I'm a calm, patient guy. I always talk the truth, and any question you ask me, you could ask me the most awkward question. I'd think about it. I'd think about my answer, and I'd give you an answer. And if I couldn't give you an answer, I'll just say, like sometimes you hear celebrities talk about subjects they know nothing about. If I don't know the answer, I'll just tell you I don't know the answer. I wouldn't make myself look silly. But, do you think fighters need media training? Can you explain that to us?
I mean, I know a lot of high profile fighters do get to, or are asked to go through media training, and, a lot of them do it. And I think, there's no harm in doing it, especially if you're at a level where your media work is with, high level, or sort of, big broadcasters. It really doesn't, it's not going to do you any harm. And there, with media training, there's always a diplomatic way of answering the question, of doing the sort of political stance on it, and going around, not actually answering a difficult question, but going around it and still giving an answer, because that's the most important thing. And in that, when a journalist gives you their time and are speaking to you, I've definitely been in those situations where people just answer yes, no, and there's you have to fill those gaps and stuff. So to make the process more enjoyable for everyone, sometimes it is an idea for fighters to get media trained. But I think the majority of them, I've never had media training myself, but I have always wanted to get better in terms of my interview skills and, my listening skills and stuff. So I always go back on old interviews and, look at where I feel I was doing well, where I feel I could improve. And then you start to self-critique, and you get better naturally as the years go on. So I think that kind of happens with fighters as well. When they start out, they do terrible interviews. They're not really that interested. They don't answer properly. They don't speak properly. They don't speak clearly. And then as they go on in their career, they just get a lot better and a lot more confident in answering questions and talking about themselves.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, you become more experienced and so on, and yeah, you see the change in people.
Yeah.
But last question for today, if that's okay. What I mean, there's so many I can name, but what fights would you like to see in boxing? Is there anyone you're sort of watching out for? I mean, for me,
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say I'd love to see Spence Crawford, for example. How about
Yeah,
you?
I mean, I think a lot of people are looking forward to when Spence Crawford is made, if it ever is made. I think for me, one of the big ones obviously was Taylor Serrano. We've just had that made. I didn't think we'd ever see that fight. So that is fantastic that we are getting to see the fight. We're getting to see it this year and in a couple of weeks. I think it'll be, obviously they are, haven't mentioned how historic the event itself is going to be. So I'm glad that I'm working. I'm glad that I'm in the sport in a time when, history has been made, essentially. I think as well, another fight that I want to see made is Joshua Fury. I know we've wanted to see that for a long time. I want to see it again. I want to see Usyk have a rematch with Joshua. I want to see Usyk fight Tyson Fury. And then I want Dillian White in the mix as well. So I'm a big fan of the heavyweight division in boxing, and I'd like to see it. I want to see Billy Joe Saunders make a comeback. I know that they're talking about Chris Eubank Jr. I would also like to see Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. I know it's a difficult fight to make because of the weight classes, and both guys are at different levels in their career, but I think that for a fan spectacle and the build up and just the history with their dads and stuff, I think that will be a really, really exciting, fun, entertaining fight camp and campaign that will go around it. So I mean, there's loads of fights that I'd like to see made. I'm just honestly, because we've had boxing taken away for so long with the pandemic, I'm just happy for boxing to be back now and to get to do my job.
Yeah, I mean, let's not talk about the hypocrisy of these politicians having their little parties while the rest of us were locked down. So I'm just glad
some
things are back.
of us weren't locked down. Some of us continue to just go on about our business.
What can I say? But I'm glad everything's back. Good to talk to you today. I think I saw you. Were you at the Eubank media event, the press conference, the recent one?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was you. Yeah, Eubank versus Liam Williams. So yeah,
Yes.
hopefully I see you around in future.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks very much, Lydia. Have a great day.
Okay, Michael. Bye.
Bye.